Welcome to Easy Style with Sammy. I'm your host, Sammy Bedell-Mulhern. Each episode, I invite a friend, family member, colleague, or just someone I've met on this journey called life to come and share their personal style and approach to business, parenting, life, and everything in between. You'll hear motivational and inspirational stories that will help you refine and build your own personal style. Remember, style is easy when it comes from within. Hey there, and welcome back to another episode of Easy Style with Sammy. Today, my guest is Massey. Anne, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So we met years ago, I don't know how many years ago, but I know we kind of really connected about maybe 2 or 3 years ago. I've lost time. I don't know about you, but COVID has lost time for me.
There's no concept. Yeah.
There's no concept. But we're in the same mastermind program, the Modern CEO. And so we got to meet there in a lot of those calls and kind of went through a similar transition in moving and spending some time traveling, and had some fun times connecting over that. So we'll get into all of that. But I'd love for you to start just by introducing yourself and letting people know a little bit about you.
Okay. Yeah. I never really know how to answer that question, right? Because, so many of us are have so many different things. So again, my name is Massey, and I am a health and wellness coach. And while that seems like a very simple concept, it's really, pretty broad. I mean, I started my career in business management. So, everything that I've done through the years has built me into this place, and love to travel and love to help people and love to get connected with people. And that's a lot about what this year is going to be for me, is just, connecting with people. And I actually hear my dog coming around. So you might see him over there. I am a dog mom. And he's got his little sweater on. So he's my baby, proud dog mom. Yeah.
Well, and what's his name?
Sammich.
Sammich.
Sammich. So what a little kid would call a sandwich.
I love it. Well, and you guys have been on adventure. So let's get into this, because when we, really started chatting, you were living in Hawaii. You were working for a company, but also doing your own coaching.
Correct.
And I think this is really why I wanted to have you on the podcast, because I feel like this is my perception. So you can totally tell me I'm wrong and change it and whatnot. But I feel like you were on this beautiful journey of you know what? This isn't serving me. Hawaii's not serving me anymore. My full-time job isn't serving me. I don't exactly know where I want to go. I know the industry that I'm in has some flaws. So I got to really figure out what I want. And you just kind of toured the country. So what kind of inspired that? Because it's one thing to love travel. It's another thing to sell all your belongings and go live in a car. I mean, not that.
I did live in my truck. Yeah.
Yeah. Live in your car with your dog and just travel the country for a period of time.
Yeah. I mean, I think for people that had just met me right around that time or right before that time, probably don't know that doesn't seem like a huge stretch for me. I have multiple times gotten rid of most of my belongings and moved across the country, right? So even before I moved to Hawaii, I was living in Manhattan, and this was right after 9/11, decided I want something else, and sold 200 pairs of shoes on eBay and used that to move to Hawaii. I don't have that many shoes anymore. So, that particular time, where I was getting ready to leave Hawaii, I had been there just about 10 years, I think. So I had lived there originally, left for grad school, and then had come back for 10 more years. And about 2 years, before I left Hawaii again, I got divorced and made a lot of changes. And my dog has, we'll call it special needs. He has a little bit of an attitude problem. So it's hard for me to find people to watch him when I want to travel. And I had a wonderful, absolutely wonderful dog trainers. It was a husband and wife, and they did boarding, but they moved to another island. So if I wanted them to still board my dog, I had to ship him, on an airplane to another island, which I did. But it made it hard for me to travel. So the ultimate decision to leave two of my closest friends had just left the island. We're like mid-pandemic in my full-time job. 50% of my team gets laid off. And there's like a scramble to, get all their caseloads taken care of. And it ended up falling on me and another coach to, reassign, I want to say 400 or 500 sessions, like within the course of 2 days, also managing our own caseloads. And then 2 days after that, my landlord was like, hey, we're not going to renew your lease. And to find a pet-friendly, a dog-friendly apartment that is reasonably priced in Hawaii, it's like winning the lottery, right? Like it's a unicorn. And I was just like, I can't emotionally handle any of this. I think I'm just going to leave. And everyone was like, well, where are you going to go? I'm like, I don't know. I'm just going to drive around in my car. I don't know where I want to go. I don't know where I want to move. But it's time for me to go.
Has that feeling has that always been a part of your personality where because some people need to have it very structured. Like I need to know exactly where I'm going. I need to have all of the systems and steps in place. I'm not just going to pick up and go and have this adventure. Like, but has that always been a part of your personality where you're like, well, we'll just see what happens. Like the world is giving me all these signs that it's time for a change. So let's just go and let the world give me what it's going to give me.
Absolutely. Much to the chagrin of my parents and other family and friends. They're like, you don't have a plan. I'm like, I have to go. It's time to go. I know in my gut, like, this doesn't serve me anymore. I need to do it. And outwardly it might look very abrupt. But I usually have thought about it, or it's like been building, right? So like while that particular situation seemed like so abrupt and, I was out and gone within 2 months, I'd kind of been already in that place of like, I'm getting a little itchy. Something needs to change. I don't know what it is. It'll show up, but it was just like kind of that, within just a couple days, those few things, it was like, okay, this is something else. You need something else.
Yeah. Well, and I think, it's interesting, at least I know from my perspective, when we let go of the anxiety and this is a big thing for me this year is, doing the work I know I am here to do in the best way that I can without any sort of expectation. Like I'm not going to expect certain results. I'm just going to do what I know is right. And even just in the first part of this year, the things that have circled back to me, like it's amazing when we change that. So I love that that's how your approach was just like, let's just go see what happens. Like I know this isn't working. So many people just feel comfortable sitting in the ick because they know what to expect.
Sure. And I mean, I still have those tendencies, but I also have to, place a caveat in that I have always had the privilege of having a safety net.
Yeah.
I have good friends and family that if something happened, if I was out in these travels and I got laid off from my job, I could have gone somewhere, and had the safety to figure out the next step. So, so I've always had that, knowing I could fall back on that. Like, okay, well, if I totally, mess this up, I'll be fine. I'll be fine.
I appreciate
someone will
that.
help me. Yeah. And I mean, I think, the ability to take risks definitely comes with that privilege of having something to fall back on, whether even if it is your savings and things, or if it's other people. There's probably few people that are just like, I'm just going to do it, consequences be damned, and not, know that like they won't end up homeless or in jail or something like that.
Yeah. Well, okay. So what would you say kind of, because I know as you were on this journey, you were also working on your coaching business and kind of determining exactly what you were going to do, who you were going to serve, how you were going to serve them. Like, how did this trip affect kind of that piece, or did that piece kind of affect where you traveled to? Like, how to have all of these things kind of played together? Because you just, I believe, got a new certification in cannabis coaching.
Yes, I did. I finally finished it after 2 years. I finished my Cannabis Coaching Certification. So one of the things, like working on that as I was driving through the States was, popping into different recreational legal states, going into dispensaries, seeing what was available, like what was the community. And again, a lot of, these travels started for me in February of 2021. So there still was a lot of things shut down due to the pandemic. So, networking events were not a thing.
Yeah.
You could go into certain stores. I couldn't like go into a bar next to a dispensary and have a conversation. Like a lot of those things were closed. So sometimes it really ended up being just like popping into the store and asking a question, or, reaching out in an online community in those areas. So, the trip kind of informed that part in that sense. But I also think I've also had the opportunity to travel a lot in my life, even before this trip. My father was born in Ireland and came to the States in '62. So international travel was something that, we could do. We understood that. So I was able to go abroad a couple times when I was younger, did a lot of traveling throughout the States, moved to Hawaii, lived in Seattle.
Yep.
So I've had an opportunity to go to a lot of different places. So some of what this trip also was like, let's go places that we haven't been. Who are the people? What do they do? What is it like? What is the weather? Do I feel safe? And I've always lived in big cities on the coast, so it's like, what is the middle like? I don't know. What is the middle like? I also love to eat, so I'm like, okay, there's going to be like different food in all of these places, so I'm going to eat the food, and I'm going to take my dog on hikes, and I think that the world is so big, and there's so many different places to see and go and learn from those people. Or even just learn from the environment. And I'm never going to be able to do that enough. Like I'm always going to want more of that.
Well, and do you think that plays into your coaching style? Like the way that you approach your clients also, like that, like it's like there's a holistic way of dealing with our body and health, but then it's also like a much more holistic way of looking at kind of the emotional and the mental side of what we're all experiencing. Like, do you think that allows you to be a little bit more in tune with the clients you're working with?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up, because I think that me having had those experiences, recognize that want in my clients, but also I think has given me maybe the chance to be more empathetic to their personal experiences. Like, me having had so many different kinds, I understand that most of my clients will not have a life experience at all like mine. And most of them aren't even similar to each other. So, that definitely, having had that variety of experience also allowed me to see, any current and potential client in a broader light, and as more complex human beings.
Yeah. So so you're now on the East Coast, right?
I am. I'm in New Jersey, in the middle, and I'm about a block and a half in from the ocean.
Very nice.
Which is very important. So every morning, the dog and I, rain or shine or snow, which we're supposed to have later today, we do a morning boardwalk walk, and maybe one other time during the day. But like every morning, usually between 6:30 and 7:30, I'm out there on the boardwalk, seeing the ocean, watching the sunrise.
Taking in the water. Yeah. Oh, that sounds amazing. Yeah. Do you think that you'll be wonderful there for a while, or are you getting the itch again? Like, are you going to travel, or are you just...
Yeah, I'm always itchy for travel. And it is, because of the dog, it is easiest for me to just like get in the car and drive around right now. That being said, my brother in LA just had a baby. I am going to go out there and see the baby next month. So I'll have a little bit of travel. But no, I couldn't answer that question. Am I going to stay put? I don't think I know how.
Yeah.
So this is where I am until I'm not.
until you're not. I love that. Well, and what I have always loved about your approach is like in conversations we've had where you've said things like, you know, there's issues within our industry as far as how, you know, trainers, coaches, consultants in the health and wellness space are compensated, treated, you know, how large companies are, you know, requiring things that are just not reasonable and kind of lower your ability to give the quality of care that you want. So
Absolutely.
what I have loved is your approach to all of that, and that like, I don't really know how to fix this, but I'm going to just figure it out step by step and just kind of figure out what my truth and my passion is around that. So does it feel good now that you've completed this certification and you're kind of in your business? Like, do you look back on Hawaii when you were in that moment? Like, what does that feel like? I lost like half my job, or half of my employees are gone. I don't have a place to live, to now where you're at. Like, how do you feel about that journey?
I mean, I think that any of those experiences are shaping like who we are and the direction that we want to go in. And I have to say that probably something that made that experience easier to navigate for me is that after I got divorced, one of my personal goals was to really create more depth and intimacy in my friendships. And because I just never wanted to feel that loneliness again. And, you know, so that was something that I really fostered. So even when I was like alone in the middle of the country, I never felt alone. I wasn't lonely because I had created these relationships. And because Hawaii is so transitory, a lot of my friends have come and gone. I've moved from a lot of places. So my people are all over the place. Yeah. So I could still, you know, have those deep connections without physically being in the same room with someone on a regular basis. You know, so that I think really helped that kind of, okay, here's a bump. What do you do next? Like, who am I? What do I want to become? You know, so that has helped in that trajectory to sitting in this apartment now.
Well, when you're fostering those kinds of relationships, you also kind of have a better, like, okay, I know like right now this bump is, you know, more financial related, or this bump is more like I'm in an anxiety ridden space, or whatever. You have, you know, who to go to help support you in those 100%. Specific things, which can help with not feeling alone, because you have that connection and understanding on a variety of different elements.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So favorite place that you went on your road trip, and place that surprised you the most?
I never can answer this question. I think the places were, do I have places that like were awful? Absolutely. But my favorite places, I don't know. Every place is so unique, has its own personality, has its own food. You know, some places I was alone. Sometimes I was in an area where there were friends and they showed me around. Sometimes friends met me in places. And, you know, like I had a friend that met me in New Orleans, and I'd never been there, and they showed me around. And, you know, so that made the experiences just kind of different. I will say that the very first place that I was after I left my brother's place in LA, so this is like, you know, the first destination, the first Airbnb, I end up in this weird type of RV park in the middle of Coachella, California, that really turned out to be a retirement community.
Oh, no.
And they were so wonderful. Like on my morning dog walks, I kept seeing this one guy, Wayne, every morning. And finally he was like, you know, we play pickleball every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 9:30. You should come and join. And then afterwards, like we go to someone different's house every time and have coffee and breakfast. And I did. I didn't go every day because and I just went for and I was there for 6 weeks. So I went a bunch of times, and I was invited to people's homes for dinner. And one of their people that used to live in the community owned a date farm across the street, and we got a tour, and I was like, okay, just like talk to people out in the world. You have no idea what's going to happen. And I felt like that was such a great opening to the possibilities of what could happen on the trip.
In a community that you would have never put yourself in necessarily, or people you would have never, ever met. Otherwise.
Almost all of them were from Saskatchewan, Canada. So it wasn't even like these were just, totally random, population that I ended up with.
That's awesome. Well, I love your story, and I think it's an inspiration for people to, even if you're not willing to step outside your box enough to sell all your stuff and move across the country or do all of that stuff, but at least maybe it's kind of a nudge in listen to what your intuition is telling you, and don't sit in what's comfortable. Like, push yourself to do something and see what happens.
Yeah. There's really exciting things on the other side of fear.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Okay. Well, here are our last questions that I ask every single guest that comes on the podcast. So where is your kind of go-to place for personal development, or where you go to maybe even learn about your travels or kind of plan for things?
I don't have a specific place. I consume a ridiculous amount of information, like book reading, news, articles, that usually if I'm like, oh, I'm really interested in something, like eventually through that consumption, it just kind of pops out.
Got it.
And shows up like, oh, yeah, you put that out to the universe. There it is. You've been looking for it. Here it is.
It's kind of like, when you're going to go buy a new car and all of a sudden you see that car.
You see it everywhere.
Everywhere?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we put our attention on that thing and then it appears.
Yep, I believe that too. Would you consider yourself an introvert or an extrovert?
Yes.
I hear that from most of my guests, which I love because I agree.
And I feel very strongly that as women age, and I'm 47, we want to be left alone. And we just like want to sit quietly and be left alone for a period of time. And then when we're done, we're going to go out and do things. And I love to be around people and talk, and I love live music. But my God, I love living alone. I love being in here by myself.
Yes, I can understand that. Yeah. Okay, what's one thing on your goal list for the upcoming year, either personal or professional?
Even through this conversation, I actually feel like I've done all of these things, but I've been playing way too small. And this year is about leveling up. And specifically in like the beginning of the year, I've been focusing on, leveling up my connections and networking. Because the field, like the coaching field is so big, like health coaching is big, but then there's executive coaching and leadership coaching and life coaching. And I think they all inform each other. So I've been doing a lot to make those connections, and then also bring in the cannabis piece to that. So it's really kind of having a louder, stronger voice and being more seen.
That's awesome. I love that. What's one piece of advice that you've gotten from someone that has stuck with you?
I think probably the best advice I was ever given was, one of my first bosses. He was really fantastic. And he said an acceptable answer to almost any question is, I don't know. Let me get back to you. No matter like what level of expert you are, we don't know everything. Yeah. We might have an idea of it, or like, I remember I read an article about that. What did it say? I mean, we could make it up and answer the question, but it's totally okay to be like, you know what? I think I know, but let me follow up and get back to you.
Yeah. That's great advice. And how lucky to get that advice from a manager early in your career, right?
Right.
When you're just getting started, as opposed to sitting. I remember sitting in meetings, and financials are not my thing, but I had to present on financials for events at a nonprofit. And like, I can't do math in my head. And I was new, and the CEO looks at me and he's like drilling me with all these questions. And I was just like, ah! And if I would have just like taken a breath and been like, could you list these questions out for me? I will get you all the information I have here.
I can get them.
But it wasn't an environment where I felt like that was safe to do. And instead it created a whole lot of anxiety. So whoever that supervisor is, kudos to them for sharing that.
Yeah, he was great.
Awesome.
And I think it pertains to so many things in the rest of everything. Our life as well. Yeah.
Yeah. We don't have to know everything.
We don't.
What is a non-negotiable in your life?
Rest. And, whether that be sleep, I am a massage therapist, so I'm very picky, but I found an absolutely amazing massage therapist out here. And, every time I go in, she's like, what do you want to focus on? I'm like, my nervous system. Let's just relax it. And she does.
Yeah.
But even, laying on the couch and listening to music, but just, any type of deep rest.
So good. So good. And thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with everyone. If people want to connect with you, learn more about you, how do they do that?
You can find me on LinkedIn, Anne, A-N-N-E, Massey, M-A-S-S-E-Y. And then the thing also says NJ at the end because I am in New Jersey now. But you can also find me at my website, which is my first and last name, ANNEMASSEY.com.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Well, are you inspired and excited to do something that scares you in your life? I hope so. Anne is such an inspiration, and I'm so grateful and thankful that she was on the podcast. You can grab all of her links at easystylewithsammy.com/7, and that's SAMI. I look forward to seeing you there. But thank you so much for listening to these episodes every single week. I'd love to know which stories are inspiring you. And if you have an inspiring story and you want to share it on this podcast, just send me an email, sammy@easystylewithsammy.com. But for now, we'll let you go and get on with your day and get into some things that are going to challenge you and push you past fear. I love that she said that. Make sure you subscribe wherever you listen. New episodes come out on Thursdays, and I would really love it if you would leave us a review, especially on Apple Podcasts. But thank you again, and we'll see you in the next one.